So it's great to have Greg Micoletti and Peter Early here with us today on this edition of the Subtle Smart podcast. I'd really like to just to start out with something kind of simple. Last week, we collectively, association, staff, we put together something that really morphed into something bigger than any of us expected. So 2 days to make a difference is what we called it. It was the first time NSSTA leaders had come to Washington formally, officially, for meetings with members of Congress since I think about 2015, if you can believe it. So we left all these members of Congress alone, which is never good, and we weren't meeting with them all throughout COVID. Well, we made up for it last week. Let me just start out with Greg and Peter, just your thoughts, your observations. What did you come away from our last couple of days here in DC last week for that event we called 2 days to make a difference?
Eric, I think you did an amazing job setting this up. When I first heard about 2 days to make a difference, even me as the congressional outreach loudmouth of NSSTA did not expect for it to turn into what it turned into. Not just the number of meetings, not just the important people we met with, but the enthusiasm from our members. They're coming home, the people I've talked to since. I mean, we had a really, really dynamic group of people from all different parts of our industry. And the meetings that I attended, the leaders of Congress we met with, I thought it was just truly an exceptional meeting that blew even my highest expectations out of the water.
Greg, how about you?
I agree. When the agenda came out with all the meetings for all of our members that were going to be in DC, I forwarded them to my team here at American General, and the collective impression was, wow. It was just a really impressive agenda. And what I was impressed with, I'm not a regular, visitor on Capitol Hill, is I was just really impressed with how familiar these members of Congress are with structured settlements for the most part. And the good part is most of them are familiar with structured settlements, and you can really see the difference with the people that aren't, maybe the new members of Congress, and the difference that NSSTA's efforts has made to educating people to what we do and how we need to be protected, and how it's continuous work because we have new people coming into Congress every year.
So we had, and I'm a lobbyist, so I always overstate the numbers. I think we had ultimately 37 individual or separate meetings with members of Congress and some key congressional staffers. Is there one event or one meeting or one thing that took place that really stands out in your mind and something you'd like to share with all of our members, your own recollections of last week?
I thought the meeting we had with Congressman Jason Smith, who's the incoming chair, or now the chair of House Ways and Means, obviously for our industry, that is a committee that is very important to what we do. I don't know how familiar he was with structured settlements prior to that meeting. I am sure that he is familiar with structured settlements after it. He was attentive and asked questions, and we had breakfast with him in DC, and I think he was there for every bit of an hour with all of the leaders from our industry. And we were very, very passionate talking about what we do, and I think it was really well received. So that what Greg was saying, some of the people may not have been as familiar with structured settlements. I know for a fact that one, who's definitely an important one, that member of Congress is definitely familiar with what we do and who we help now.
Yeah, I was super impressed with Ron Wyden, our senator from Oregon. I mean, he was so familiar and was so in tune with what we do, and the answers he asked were so smart, and he truly just wanted to help. And again, go back to my earlier comment, we met with somebody else. I'm not going to mention the name, but it was a freshman representative who, frankly, clearly had no idea and made some comments that were troubling, clearly not familiar with 130C and the codes that make us work, and why we use annuities to help structured settlements victims, to help personal injury victims.
And so we don't mention names. I've already spoken with that member's chief of staff, We've already set up a meeting for next week. And that's honestly, that's one of the reasons why you do this. You don't want to just meet with the same old friends and faces. You have to meet with new people in charge. I have to tell you both, my favorite event of the entire, we kept saying 2 days, it seemed like 5 weeks of what we did last week, was the meeting we had with Congressman John Larson. Now, you met with him in his office, Greg, and I know you're laughing right now because you know where I'm going. And then we had a lunch with him, and I got there a little late. And you and the congressman, to say you hit it off is missing it completely. What were the two of you so tight in conversation about? Because it didn't sound like structured settlements to me.
We were talking some football. It was pretty funny. We were meeting with his legislative director, Mike Dunn, who was great. He was well informed on our subject. And Representative Larson stopped by to say hello on his way out before lunch. And when I introduced myself, he said, "Micoletti, which of the Micolettis are you?" And I ticked off my uncles, and he knew all of them. And he coached youth football with them, and I said, "Yeah, my father coached football, youth football for 13 years. He coached the Cardinals." And he said, "Oh, before the Cardinals, that was the Plumbers. They were coached by your uncles Chick and Fred," and just went to a whole kind of waxing nostalgic about football in East Hartford and how far it's come. I mean, he grew up only a couple miles from where I grew up, and so we grew up in the same neighborhoods, and clearly had some similar football memories from East Hartford.
Well, you mentioned Mike Dunn. He's the Congressman's legislative director, longtime staffer. And Peter, you've expressed this over the years, which is something I think is extremely valuable. You want to meet the member of Congress. You must meet the staff people. And if you don't work with them directly, the member might miss it or might not be aware. We had a couple of really terrific staff people with us. How important is it? I just said it, but to you personally, your experience, to get to know the staff?
It's every bit as important as getting to know the member. The picture with the member of Congress is great. It's what we put on the website. It's what gets the clicks. But legislatively, it's the person taking the notes that is going to be feeding the information back to the member when it counts. With every member of Congress we met with, they listened attentively, they sat, they asked questions. Not one of them had a pen and paper. And the reason for that is, if you're a member of Congress, you're expected to be an expert on every subject under the sun. It's impossible to be a subject matter expert on everything that could be possibly legislated. And so they have staff, and they are incredibly qualified, incredibly young members of the congressional staff or congressional member staff that listen to us and are truly subject matter experts. So that's, some of the conversations I had really kind of delved deeper down into the things Ray was talking about, Section 130, Section 104, the actual tax code, the subtleties of the PTSD and some of the way 104 is written right now. That kind of stuff, those conversations you can have with a member and they'll nod and smile, but it's that notebook that the legislative aide wrote it down in that's going to come back out again, when the tax changes are coming in the future. So to me, that's one of my favorite things. As many people probably know, I used to work on Capitol Hill. I was one of those staffers, so I'm obviously a little bit biased, but that is every bit as important as meeting with the member of Congress.
And Greg, I don't want to belabor the Congressman Larson's meeting and you're the staff director, but Mike Dunn, tell us a little bit, how did you recognize that he knew a little bit about structured settlements? What did he say?
I don't remember the specific questions, but I mean, he asked educated questions that only somebody that already knew something about our industry, already knew what we did, would ask. So, when you're talking to somebody in Washington, if they're asking really basic questions or asking a little more in-depth questions, how much they knew coming into the meeting, it's pretty apparent.
I look back through my notes, and I keep pretty good notes about meetings with staffers. I met Mike Dunn first time 11 years ago. He was a legislative correspondent which means he basically opens the door, sometimes takes the cat for a walk, but the very lowest level position. Now he's in the most powerful job among the third most powerful Democrat on Ways and Means.
He looked like he was about 25. That's hard to believe.
They all look like they're about teenagers. One member of Congress, Jason Smith, brought his chief of staff, Matt Meyer. Matt's new in the job, sat off on the side and did what Peter suggested. It was taking notes. When we got up to leave and everybody was shaking Congressman Smith's hand, I walked over to Matt and just said, "Thanks for being here. It was great to see you." And he looked at me, he pulled me in a little closer, and he said, "I got to tell you right now, you have a friend for life in the chairman." He was totally with it. He understood what you're talking about. This is a great issue. Let me ask you both a real quick question. If you had one thing to say to members that you work with, who weren't there last week, but maybe also don't come to meetings and don't reach out to members of Congress, what would you say to encourage them to get active, to get involved, and to try to meet their member of Congress?
Meet with your member of Congress in their district office. You don't have to come to Washington, D.C. to meet with your member of Congress or the legislative staff. If it is your member of the House of Representatives, they have a district office within a hour drive of where you live. I can almost guarantee it. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to get in a car and drive an hour, donate to NSSTA's PAC. That's what allowed us to do all of the things that we did this week. You hate to monetize how important this issue is, but we can't do it without PAC dollars. And so even if you're a wallflower, even if there's something that prohibits you from going to meet with your member of Congress in Washington, D.C. or the district office, you can give to the NSSTA PAC, and it allows Eric and other members to meet with those members of Congress and get our message across. So there are a number of ways to do it, but those are the two that I would recommend that are the easiest and don't require getting on an airplane.
So Peter has experience in Capitol Hill, and Eric's a lobbyist. So I will speak for the layman among us who, when talking about visiting a member of Congress, is extremely intimidated. This is my second time doing it, and I will tell you, the second time doing it, I was still just intimidated as the first, because last time we did it was quite a while ago. And what I will tell people is don't be intimidated. Our message is an easy sell. We have the support of the AAPD, the National Consumers League, the defense attorneys, plaintiff attorneys, property casualty companies, life insurance companies, Republicans, Democrats. We're an easy sell. And the beautiful thing is we're not actually asking for anything. We just want to protect what we already have. We just want them to know, hey, we don't want 130C to get slipped into some bill where somebody decides they're going to make some money off the insurance companies and then end up hurting all these injured people. So it's not intimidating. You, as a NSSTA member, know way more about our industry than they do, and you will be able to help inform them. So it's not as intimidating as it seems.
And it's important too, because Eric is a tremendous lobbyist. If you ever had any doubt about that, this week should have put it out of your mind. I mean, 37 members of Congress in the span. I know it felt like 5 weeks, but it was like 48 hours. I think Eric somehow was at every single one. I joke that he must go through a couple pairs of shoes a day to get around to all the meetings that he attends. But Eric can only vote for 3 members of Congress, just like Greg can, just like I can. You have 2 senators and 1 representative, and that's it. And I promise you, they listen a lot more to someone who can vote for them than someone who doesn't, even if they're the best lobbyist in DC. So your voice, when you have a chance to meet with your member of Congress, is really important. And the district office is close. But if you do get a chance to go to DC, and Greg, I'm sure you had the same experience, I forgot how fun it was just to walk around those buildings and look at the flags and look at the members of Congress and see the energy is absolutely contagious. So if you do have an opportunity to go to DC, especially this time of year, which is awesome, bring your kids, bring your spouse, but stop in on Capitol Hill because it is really, really fun.
It was a whirlwind, and to be in those legislative office buildings with Congress in session, it is impressive. It's like you feel that energy.
Well, you two are probably the best lobbyists I've ever worked with. I watched you both work, watch Craig work with the third most powerful member of the House Ways and Means Committee and talking like you've been the best buddies forever. And Peter, you've got the highest quality time, I think, of anybody with your senator, Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire. I want to congratulate you both for doing successful work on Capitol Hill last week, and to thank you both for taking the time to be with us here today with the Settle Smart podcast. You're a joy to work for, but you're more importantly, you're a joy to watch work on Capitol Hill. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, Eric. It was a blast. Can't wait to do it again sometime soon.
Agreed. Thanks for all your
gentlemen.
work, Eric. And it was a great opportunity.
Perfect. Talk to you soon. Thanks, gentlemen.